The massive holographic screen filled the command deck of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Supremacy. Admiral Tejo stood with his arms crossed, watching the transmission that had just arrived from the Outer Rim territories. Behind him, dozens of officers waited in silence. The image showed a human man in a simple military uniform. His face was scarred, his hair was gray, and his eyes looked tired. But there was something in those eyes that made Admiral Tejo feel uncomfortable. The human spoke in clear galactic standard language. "I am Commander Heijin of the Human Defense Force. This message is directed to the Galactic Empire and all its leaders." The camera pulled back to show the human standing in front of burning buildings. Smoke rose from what looked like a destroyed city. Bodies lay scattered in the streets. The destruction was total. 3 days ago, your forces attacked New Sol Colony. You killed 40,000 civilians. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong. You did this because we refused to surrender our independence to your empire. Admiral Tejo had read the reports about New Sol. It was a standard pacification operation. The humans had refused to join the empire, so they were eliminated. It was the same procedure used on hundreds of worlds over the past 1,000 years. This is humanity's final communication to the Galactic Empire, the human continued. His voice was calm and steady. You have exactly 72 hours to withdraw all your forces from human space. You will also release all human prisoners you have taken, all of them. Several officers behind Admiral Tejo started laughing quietly. The human ignored them and kept speaking. If you do not comply with these demands, we will begin the total destruction of your military forces. Every ship, every base, every weapon you possess will be eliminated. This is not a threat, this is a promise. The human stepped closer to the camera. Admiral Tejo could see the determination in his eyes. We do not want war, we do not want to rule over others. We just want to be left alone. But if you force us to fight, we will fight with everything we have. And when we are done, your empire will no longer exist. The transmission showed coordinates and technical specifications for Imperial evacuation routes. The human had somehow obtained classified military information that should have been impossible for his species to access. You think we are primitive. You think we are weak. You are wrong. We have been preparing for this day for a very long time. We know everything about your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses. We are ready. The background behind the human showed more destroyed buildings, but also something else. In the distance, strange towers were rising from the ground. They looked like nothing Admiral Tejo had ever seen before. 72 hours, the human repeated. After that, we will show you what humanity is truly capable of. We hope you make the right choice. The transmission ended. The command deck was silent for several seconds. Then Lieutenant Ji-hun started laughing. Did that primitive just threaten the entire Galactic Empire? He asked. Apparently so, Admiral Tejo replied. He turned to his communications officer. Send this transmission to High Command immediately. Mark it as urgent. Sir, surely you don't take this seriously? Asked Captain Dong-Su. Humans barely have spaceflight capability. Their largest ships are smaller than our escort vessels. Admiral Tejo had been thinking the same thing, but something bothered him about the transmission. The human had seemed too confident, too calm for someone whose world had just been destroyed. How did they get our evacuation protocols? He asked. Probably stolen from some supply ship, Lieutenant Ji-hun suggested. These Outer Rim species are always trying to steal Imperial technology, but Admiral Tejo wasn't convinced. The information shown in the transmission was highly classified. It was changed regularly and only known to senior military commanders. No supply ship would have access to it. Sir, incoming transmission from the capital, announced the communications officer. The holographic display showed the image of Grand Admiral Kyung-Soo, one of the highest-ranking military leaders in the Empire. His expression was serious. Admiral Tejo, I assume you have seen the human transmission? Yes, sir. What are your orders? The Emperor has reviewed the situation. He is not pleased that these primitives dare to threaten the Empire. You are to proceed to the human home system immediately. Make an example of them that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Understood, sir. What level of force is authorized? Complete annihilation, leave no survivors. Destroy their planets if necessary. The Empire will not tolerate this kind of disrespect from any species. The transmission ended. Admiral Tejo turned to his navigation officer. Set course for the Sol system, maximum speed. Sir, should we request additional ships? Asked Captain Dong-Su. Admiral Tejo considered this. His dreadnought was one of the most powerful ships in the Imperial fleet. It carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets, but the human transmission had made him nervous. Request to additional battle groups to join us. I want overwhelming force available. Yes, sir. As the Eternal Supremacy changed course toward human space, Admiral Tejo stood looking out at the stars. In 40 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of worlds. He had seen hundreds of species surrender to Imperial might, but none of them had ever seemed as confident as that scarred human commander. The journey to human space would take 2 days at maximum warp speed. Admiral Tejo spent the time reviewing everything the Empire knew about humanity. It wasn't much. Humans had achieved spaceflight about 200 years ago. They had established colonies on 12 worlds, all in a small region of the Outer Rim. Their technology seemed primitive compared to Imperial standards. Their ships were slow and poorly armed, but there were strange gaps in the intelligence reports. Several Imperial scout ships had gone missing near human space over the past decade. Communications with human worlds were often blocked by interference that Imperial technology couldn't explain. And somehow, humans had managed to obtain classified Imperial information. On the second day of the journey, Admiral Tejo received another transmission from the human commander. This is your final warning, Commander Heijin said. His image appeared on the bridge of what looked like a human warship. You have 6 hours to turn around. After that, we will consider you a hostile force and act accordingly. Lieutenant Ji Ihun laughed again. Look at that ship behind him. It looks like it was built in a scrapyard. But Admiral Tejo noticed something different about this transmission. The human commander looked even more confident than before. And in the background, Admiral Tejo could see other humans working at control stations. They moved with the efficiency of a well-trained military force. Sir, we are receiving similar transmissions on all frequencies, reported the communications officer. It appears they are broadcasting to our entire fleet, Admiral Tejo frowned. How did the humans know the size and composition of his fleet? That information was supposed to be secret. Block all incoming transmissions, he ordered. Sir, I'm trying, but they're somehow overriding our communications security. This was impossible. Imperial communications technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. No primitive species should be able to break through their security systems, Admiral. Tejo looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere in that darkness, the human home system waited. In a few hours, he would find out if their confidence was justified, or if they were just making empty threats. He had a feeling he was about to learn something very important about humanity, and he wasn't sure he was going to like what he discovered. The Imperial Council chamber on Vorthak Prime was filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Fleet Commander Kyung-Soo stood at the center of the circular room, addressing the assembled leaders. Holographic displays showed maps of human space and military reports. The human ultimatum has been received by all major Imperial installations, Kyung-Soo announced. They claim they will destroy our military forces if we do not withdraw from their territory within 72 hours. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Council member Vexstar, a large reptilian alien with 4 arms, slammed his fist on the table. Primitives threatening the Empire? This is absurd. He roared. General Sujin stepped forward. She was the Empire's most decorated war leader, having conquered more worlds than any other commander in Imperial history. Her uniform was covered with medals and battle ribbons. I have reviewed all available intelligence on the human species, she said. They possess no significant military fleet. Their largest warships are roughly equivalent to our patrol boats. They have no weapons capable of threatening Imperial dreadnoughts. She activated a holographic display showing human ships. They looked crude and primitive compared to the sleek Imperial vessels. Their technology is at least 300 years behind our current standards. They still use chemical rockets for some of their space travel, and their energy weapons are weak and inefficient. They pose no credible threat to Imperial forces. Council member Zorthak, an insectoid creature with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles in agreement. We have crushed species far more advanced than these humans. Remember the Altarian Confederation? They had ships twice the size of ours and still fell within a month. The Calarian Republic lasted only 3 days, added another council member. And they had actual energy shields and quantum weapons. General Sujin nodded. Exactly. Every species that has ever threatened the Empire has been eliminated. These humans will be no different. But Chief Intelligence Analyst Beoram raised her hand. She was one of the few humans working for the Empire, taken as a child and raised to serve Imperial interests. Her loyalty was unquestioned, but she looked worried. I have some concerns about our intelligence gathering in human space, she said. Carefully, the room fell silent. General Sujin frowned at her. What kind of concerns? We have had unusual difficulty monitoring human communications. Their networks seem to be protected by some form of encryption we cannot break. Several of our spy satellites have malfunctioned when they get too close to human worlds. Equipment failures happen, General Sujin dismissed, especially in the outer rim territories. Yes, but there is another issue. We have lost contact with 17 scout ships in or near human space over the past 10 years. That is a much higher loss rate than anywhere else in the galaxy. Council member Vextar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. Probably pirates. Or space debris. The outer rim is a dangerous place. Bahram looked down at her datapad. Perhaps, but I also noticed that the human commander in the transmission had access to classified Imperial evacuation protocols. Those codes are changed monthly and are only known to senior military staff. This caused some murmuring in the chamber. General Sujin's expression darkened. Are you suggesting there is a security breach in Imperial Command? I am suggesting. We may not know as much about human capabilities as we think we do. The Emperor himself had been listening to the discussion from his throne at the head of the chamber. He was ancient, having ruled the Empire for over 600 years. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes glowed with artificial enhancement. When he spoke, everyone listened. Intelligence Analyst Beoram, he said in a voice like grinding metal. Do you believe these humans pose a genuine threat to the Empire? Beoram hesitated. Speaking against the majority opinion in the Imperial Council was dangerous, but she believed in telling the truth. Your Majesty, I believe we should investigate further before taking military action. There are too many unknowns about human capabilities. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing teeth that had been replaced with metal implants. In 3,000 years of Imperial rule, we have faced many enemies. Some were technologically advanced. Some were numerous. Some were clever. All of them are now extinct, or serving as Imperial slaves. What makes you think these humans are different? I do not know, Your Majesty. I simply think caution would be wise. General Sujin stepped forward angrily. Your Majesty, if we show any hesitation in responding to this threat, other species might think they can challenge Imperial authority. We must respond with overwhelming force to maintain order in the galaxy. Council member Zorthak agreed. The humans must be made an example. If we allow this insult to stand, rebellions will start on every world in the Empire. The Emperor stood up from his throne. Despite his age, he was still an imposing figure, nearly 3 meters tall. The Empire has ruled through strength for 3 millennia. Every species in the galaxy knows that challenging Imperial authority means death. We will not allow a primitive species from the Outer Rim to change that. He pointed at General Sujin. You will take the 3rd, 7th, and 9th battle fleets to human space. You will eliminate every human world. Destroy their planets if necessary. I want the entire species extinct within 1 week, General Sujin saluted. It will be done, Your Majesty, and make sure the destruction is recorded. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens when you threaten the Empire. As the council session ended, Bioram gathered her reports and prepared to leave. She still felt uneasy about the human situation, but there was nothing more she could do. The decision had been made. General Sujin approached her as they walked out of the chamber. Your concerns have been noted, Analyst Bioram. But you worry too much. I have destroyed dozens of civilizations. These humans will be no different. I hope you are right, General. I am always right. That is why I have never lost a battle. Bioram nodded and walked away, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The human commander in the transmission had seemed too confident, too prepared. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't remember what. That night, Bioram sat in her office reviewing the intelligence files again. She noticed something she had missed before. In the background of the human transmission she could see strange structures that didn't match any known human technology. She enhanced the image and studied it carefully. The structures looked almost organic, but they were clearly artificial. They seemed to be generating some kind of energy field that her instruments couldn't identify. Ram made a note in her report and filed it with Imperial Command, but she knew no one would read it until after the attack on human space was completed. By then, it might be too late. 3 days later, the Imperial fleets departed for human space. General Sujin commanded from her flagship, the Galaxy's Fist, a massive dreadnought capable of destroying entire planets. Behind her, 600 ships of various sizes prepared to eliminate humanity forever. The journey would take 4 days at maximum warp speed. General Sujin was confident it would be a simple operation. The humans would surrender immediately when they saw the size of the Imperial fleet, or they would be destroyed in a matter of hours. Either way, the Empire would send a clear message to the galaxy. No one challenges Imperial authority and lives to tell about it. Ram watched the fleets depart from her office window. She said a quiet prayer for the human civilians who would die in the coming battle. And despite everything she had been taught about Imperial superiority, she found herself hoping that somehow the humans would survive. Dr. Yunkyung wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked at the control console deep beneath the surface of Earth. Around her, hundreds of technicians moved quickly between massive machines that hummed with barely contained energy. The underground complex stretched for kilometers in every direction, hidden beneath mountains and oceans where Imperial satellites could never find it. Status report on the quantum field generators, she called out. All stations reporting ready, replied Engineer Wu Jin from across the control room. His hands moved expertly over holographic displays showing energy readings from around the solar system. We have full coverage from Mercury to Pluto, Dr. Yunkyung nodded. After 90 years of secret development, Project Silent Thunder was finally ready. The Empire thought humans were primitive, but they had been carefully building the most advanced technology in the galaxy while pretending to be helpless. Dr. Yunkyung, incoming message from Captain the Jin, announced the communications officer. The main screen showed a woman in a black military uniform standing on the bridge of what looked like a simple cargo ship. But Dr. Yunkyung knew better. The ship was actually one of the most sophisticated vessels ever built, designed to operate in conditions that would disable any Imperial warship. The Imperial fleets have entered our outer detection range, Captain. The Jin reported. 3 battle groups exactly as predicted. Approximately 600 ships total. Understood. Begin Phase 1 deployment. Dr. Yunkyung turned to the assembled staff in the control room. These were the best scientists and engineers from 12 human worlds, working together on the most important project in human history. People, this is the moment we have been preparing for our entire lives. In a few hours, the galaxy is going to learn the truth about humanity. She walked to the center of the room where a 3-dimensional map of local space was displayed. Hundreds of small lights showed the positions of hidden installations throughout the solar system. For 200 years we have let the Empire believe we are weak. We built slow ships and used primitive weapons where they could see us. But, in secret, we have been developing something completely different. The map zoomed in to show Earth. Beneath the planet's surface, a network of energy conduits connected massive generators to transmission towers hidden in remote locations. While the Empire focused on building bigger guns and stronger armor, we studied the fundamental forces that make their technology possible. We learned how to manipulate matter at the quantum level. We discovered how to alter the basic laws of physics in localized areas. Engineer Wu Jin activated another display showing the technical specifications of Imperial warships. Imperial technology depends on controlled fusion reactions, electromagnetic field manipulation, and faster-than-light communication through subspace. All of these things require specific physical constants to work properly. Dr. Yun Kyung smiled grimly, and we have learned how to change those constants. The scientists and engineers in the room had spent their entire careers working on this project. They had sacrificed normal lives, families, and careers to give humanity the tools it needed to survive against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. The Empire uses brute force, Dr. Yun Kyung continued. They build ships with thick armor and powerful weapons. They rely on superior numbers and advanced technology to overwhelm their enemies. But they have never faced an enemy that could make their technology stop working? She activated a simulation showing an Imperial dreadnought approaching Earth. As it entered a certain range, the ship's systems began failing one by one. Weapons powered down, shields collapsed, and life support systems struggled to function. Our quantum field generators create zones where the fundamental forces of physics operate differently. In these zones, Imperial fusion reactors become unstable. Their energy weapons cannot focus properly. Their shields require more power than their reactors can provide. Captain the Jin's image reappeared on the screen. Dr. Yun Kyung, the Imperial? Advanced scouts have reached the outer perimeter. Should we activate the field generators? Not yet, let them get closer. We want them to commit their full force before we reveal our capabilities. Dr. Yun Kyung had studied every major battle in Imperial history. The Empire always won because they brought overwhelming firepower to every fight. But that strategy only worked when their technology functioned normally. How long until the main Imperial fleet arrives? She asked. 18 hours at their current speed. Good, that gives us time to complete the final preparations. Dr. Yun Kyung walked to a secure communications terminal and entered her authorization codes. Around the solar system, hidden bases received her signal and began final activation. Sequences. On Mars, massive generators buried beneath the polar ice caps hummed to life. On Jupiter's moons, installations disguised as mining operations revealed their true purpose. Even in the asteroid belt, facilities that had pretended to be simple research stations began charging their reality manipulation equipment. Engineer Wu Jin, what is the status of our ships? All vessels are in position and ready for combat operations. The crews have completed training on fighting in altered physics zones. Human ships looked primitive from the outside, but they were designed completely differently from Imperial vessels. Instead of relying on high technology, they used simpler systems that could function even when local physics was altered. Their weapons fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. Their engines used chemical rockets that worked in any environment. Dr. Yun Kyung, incoming transmission from the fleet commander. The screen showed Commander Hajin on the bridge of the human flagship. Behind him, the bridge crew worked calmly at their stations, preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of humanity. The Empire has responded exactly as predicted, he reported. They are bringing enough force to destroy our entire civilization 10 times over. They clearly believe this will be an easy victory. Let them believe that for a few more hours. Dr. Yun Kyung replied. Once they are fully committed, we will show them what humanity has really been building out here. She turned back to the control room staff. People, our ancestors dreamed of traveling to the stars and finding other intelligent life. They hoped for peace and cooperation between species. Instead, we found an empire that enslaves or destroys every civilization it encounters. The room was silent as everyone listened to her words. But our ancestors also gave us something else. They gave us curiosity, creativity, and determination. While the Empire was conquering worlds with brute force, we were learning how reality itself actually works. And now we are going to use that knowledge to break their empire forever. Engineer. Wu Jin looked up from his control station. Dr. Yun Kyung, all systems are showing green. We are ready for full activation. Excellent. Begin charging all field generators to standby power. As soon as the Imperial fleet commits to their attack, we will show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Dr. Yun Kyung looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Imperial ships. In a few hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would discover that their weapons and technology were useless against an enemy that could rewrite the laws of physics. The Empire had ruled through fear and superior firepower for 3,000 years, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. And they were about to learn that sometimes intelligence and preparation were more powerful than all the weapons in the galaxy. The Imperial Third Battle Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new business system. Admiral Dongwook watched from his hidden command center, deep within an asteroid field, as 300 Imperial warships took defensive positions around the human colony world. Imperial communications are demanding immediate surrender, reported Lieutenant Hana from the communications station. Let them demand, Admiral Dongwook replied calmly. Are our field generators ready? All generators charged and standing by. We can activate the reality distortion field at any time. Admiral Dongwook had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. New Bizen was one of humanity's newer colonies, but it was also one of their most important. Hidden beneath its peaceful farming communities were some of the most advanced quantum manipulation facilities ever built. The Imperial fleet began moving toward the planet in standard attack formation. Admiral Dongwook recognized the tactics. From his study of Imperial military procedures, they would demand surrender, wait exactly 1 hour for a response, then begin systematic bombardment of all population centers. Sir, the Imperial commander is broadcasting on all frequencies. Lieutenant Hana announced. The main screen showed an alien creature with blue skin and 4 arms standing on the bridge of an Imperial dreadnought. Its voice was translated by the computer. Attention human defenders. I am Fleet Admiral Vexener of the Imperial Third Battle Fleet. Your species has committed an act of war against the Galactic Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally or this world will be destroyed. Admiral Dongwook studied the Imperial formation. The ships were arranged in perfect attack pattern, with heavy dreadnoughts in the center and smaller escort vessels protecting their flanks. It was exactly what human strategists had expected. Commander Subin, are you ready to activate the quantum field generators? Commander Subin looked up from her control station. She was one of humanity's leading experts on quantum field manipulation, and she had spent the last decade preparing for this exact moment. All generators are synchronized and ready. Once activated, Imperial technology will become unreliable. Within a sphere roughly 3 million kilometers in diameter. What about our own ships? Our vessels are designed to operate in altered physics environments. We should experience no significant problems, Admiral Dongwook nodded. Human ships looked crude and primitive, but they were actually marvels of engineering. Instead of relying on advanced technology that could be disrupted, they used simpler systems that worked under any conditions. Sir, Imperial fighters are launching, reported the tactical officer. 200 small attack craft. Heading for the planet. Let them come closer. We want the entire Imperial fleet committed before we reveal our capabilities. The Imperial fighters approached New Bizen in tight formations, their energy weapons charged and their shields activated as they prepared to attack the human settlements below, but as they crossed into the inner system, something began to go wrong. Sir, the Imperial fighters are experiencing system failures, reported the sensor operator. Their formation is breaking up? On the main screen, Admiral Dongwook could see Imperial fighters spinning out of control as their navigation systems malfunctioned. Some were firing their weapons randomly as their targeting computers failed. Others were struggling to maintain altitude as their anti-gravity systems fluctuated. Activate the quantum field generators at 20% power, Admiral Dongwook ordered. Commander Subin's hands moved over her control panel with practiced precision. Deep beneath New Bisen's surface, massive generators that had been hidden for decades began altering the fundamental constants of local space. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Imperial fighter formation, sophisticated systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years simply stopped functioning. Fighters crashed into each other as their pilots lost control. Energy weapons overloaded and exploded. Communication systems filled with static. "Sir, the Imperial fleet is responding," announced the tactical officer. "All ships are moving to attack formation." Admiral Dongwook watched as 300 Imperial warships began advancing toward New Bisen, their massive guns charged with energy and their shields glowed with defensive power. It was the most formidable military force he had ever seen. Increase quantum field generator power to 50%. The effect spread outward from New Bisen like an invisible wave. As Imperial ships crossed into the altered physics zone, their advanced technology began failing in ways their crews had never experienced. On the Imperial flagship, alarms rang as fusion reactors became unstable. Energy shields flickered and collapsed as the field generators that maintained them required more power than the reactors could provide. Weapon systems that had been perfectly calibrated suddenly found themselves unable to focus their energy beams. "Sir, we're receiving panicked communications from the Imperial fleet," Lieutenant Hannah reported. "They're reporting massive system failures across all ship types." Admiral Dongwook allowed himself a small smile. For 200 years, humanity had watched the Empire destroy civilizations with superior technology. But the Empire had made one critical mistake. They had never encountered an enemy that could change the rules of physics itself. "Launch our ships," he ordered. From hidden bases throughout the asteroid field, human warships emerged. They looked primitive compared to the sleek Imperial vessels, but they moved with deadly purpose. Their simple chemical rockets worked perfectly in the altered physics zone. While Imperial ships struggled to maintain basic propulsion, Captain Minjay commanded the human assault formation from the bridge of the cruiser. Freedom's Edge, her ship, was built like an ancient submarine, with thick armor and redundant systems that could function under any conditions. "All ships begin attack pattern Alpha," she ordered. The human ships moved in perfect coordination. Their simple but effective weapon systems targeting Imperial vessels that were struggling with system failures. Instead of energy weapons that could be disrupted, human ships fired solid metal projectiles that worked regardless of local physics. The results were devastating. Imperial dreadnoughts that could normally destroy planets found themselves unable to return fire as their weapon systems overloaded. Their thick armor, designed to withstand energy weapons, was penetrated by simple kinetic projectiles fired at high velocity. "Sir, Imperial ships are attempting to retreat," reported the tactical officer. "Increase field generator power to maximum. Don't let any of them escape." The quantum field expanded to its full size, trapping the entire Imperial fleet in an area where their technology couldn't function properly. Some ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, but the altered physics made such travel impossible. Within 4 hours, the battle was over. 300 Imperial warships had been disabled or destroyed, while human forces suffered minimal casualties. The most powerful military fleet in the galaxy had been defeated by weapons that most civilizations would consider primitive. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the surviving Imperial ships," Lieutenant Hannah announced. "Accept their surrender. Have our boarding team secure all Imperial vessels and take the crews into custody. Make sure they are treated well. We want prisoners, not martyrs." Admiral Dongwook looked at the tactical display showing disabled Imperial ships drifting helplessly in space. This was just the beginning. The Empire would send larger fleets, more advanced weapons, and their most experienced commanders. But now humanity had proven that Imperial technology could be defeated. Commander Subin, begin shutdown procedures for the quantum field generators. We want to conserve power for the next engagement. Yes, sir. How long until the next Imperial fleet arrives? Admiral Dongwook consulted his intelligence reports. Intelligence suggests the Empire will send their core battle fleets within a week. They'll bring everything they have? Will we be ready? We've been preparing for this war for 200 years. The Empire is about to learn that humanity doesn't give up easily. As the quantum field generators powered down, normal physics returned to the new business system. The disabled Imperial ships began recovering their basic systems, but their weapons and faster-than-light drives remained offline due to damage sustained during the battle. Admiral Dongwook opened a communication channel. To the captured Imperial commander. Fleet Admiral Vexenar. I am Admiral Dongwook of the Human Defense Force. Your ships and crews are now prisoners of war. You will be treated according to galactic conventions, but you will not be released until this conflict is resolved. The alien commander's forearms gestured angrily as he responded. This is impossible. No primitive species could defeat Imperial technology. You're right, Admiral Dongwook replied. No primitive species could, but we're not primitive. We're just, very good at making you think we are. The news of the Third Battle Fleet's defeat reached Imperial command within hours. Emperor Vorthak stood in his private war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the disaster at New Bizan. His ancient face was twisted with rage that had been building for 6 centuries of absolute rule. Impossible, he snarled at the assembled military commanders. 300 ships cannot simply disappear to a primitive species. General Sujin stepped forward, her uniform bearing the medals of a dozen conquered worlds. But for the first time in her career, she looked uncertain. Your Majesty, the surviving ships report massive system failures. Their technology simply stopped working when they approached the human world. Our scientists are analyzing the data, but they have no explanation. Dr. Chang Ho, the Empire's chief science advisor, activated his own holographic display. His 6 tentacles moved nervously as he presented his findings. The Imperial ships experienced what appears to be localized alterations in fundamental physical constants. Fusion reactors became unstable, energy weapons lost coherence, and faster-than-light drives failed completely. That is scientifically impossible, declared the Emperor. Yes, Your Majesty. According to our understanding of physics, it should be impossible. But the evidence is undeniable. Admiral Nam-Su, commander of humanity's deep space operations, watched the Imperial response from his hidden command center in the Kuiper Belt. Dozens of massive installations disguised as ice mining operations surrounded him, each one capable of projecting reality-altering fields across vast distances. Intelligence reports that the Empire is mobilizing their core battle fleets, reported Captain Rian from her stealth ship near Imperial space. They're pulling ships from every sector. It looks like they're planning to bring everything they have. Admiral Nam-Su nodded grimly. He had expected this response. The Empire had ruled through superior firepower for 3 millennia. When that firepower failed, their only solution was to bring more of it. How many ships are they assembling? Current count is over 2,000 vessels, including their largest dreadnoughts and planet-killer weapons. They're also bringing their most advanced experimental technology. Good. The more advanced their technology, the more vulnerable it will be to our reality manipulation fields. Admiral Nam-Su turned to his operations staff. These were veterans of humanity's secret war preparations. Men and women who had spent decades planning for this exact conflict. Begin Phase 2 operations. It's time to take the fight to Imperial space. While the Empire gathered its massive fleets, human strike teams were already moving deep into Imperial territory. Captain Rian commanded one of these teams from a ship that looked like a simple cargo hauler but was actually one of the most advanced vessels in human space. Approaching the Kepler Sector Imperial Base, she reported to Admiral Namsu. The base commander has no idea we're here. The Kepler Sector Base was one of the Empire's major supply depots, containing weapons and equipment for hundreds of Imperial ships. It was heavily defended by automated systems and a full squadron of patrol vessels. Activate the portable reality. Anchor, Captain Rian ordered her crew. In the cargo hold of their ship, a device no larger than a shipping container began altering the physics of local space. The effect was much smaller than the massive generators used at New Bizan, but it was enough to disable the base's defensive systems. Imperial patrol ships are responding to our approach, reported Lieutenant Yansu from the sensor station. They're trying to intercept us. Let them come. They won't be able to lock weapons on us once they enter our field. The Imperial patrol ships approached with weapons charged and shields raised. But as they entered the reality-altered zone around the human vessel, their sophisticated targeting systems began malfunctioning. Energy weapons fired wildly into space while their navigation computers struggled to track a target that their sensors could barely detect. Captain Rian's ship responded with simple but effective kinetic weapons. Solid metal projectiles punched through Imperial armor that was designed to deflect energy beams. Within minutes, the entire patrol squadron was disabled. Dock with the supply depot, Captain Rian ordered. We have work to do. The human strike. Team boarded the Imperial base using cutting tools and handheld weapons that worked regardless of local physics. The base personnel, mostly automated systems and a few alien technicians, were quickly overwhelmed. Begin liberation operations, Captain Rian announced. The team moved through the base systematically, not to steal Imperial supplies but to free the thousands of slaves who worked in the facility's manufacturing areas. These were beings from dozens of species that the Empire had conquered over the centuries, forced to build weapons for their oppressors. This is Captain Rian of the Human Liberation Force, she announced over the base's communication system. You are free. Any being who wishes to leave this place will be given transportation to safety. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of slaves from across the galaxy emerged from their work areas, many of them barely able to believe what they were hearing. Dr. Centaur, a scientist from the conquered Altarian civilization, approached Captain Rian with tears in his large eyes. Is this real? Are you truly offering freedom? It's real. We're not here to conquer or enslave anyone. We're here to break the chains that the Empire has placed on the galaxy. As the liberation operation continued, similar strikes were taking place across Imperial space. Human teams appeared at military bases, supply depots, and slave labor facilities throughout the Empire. They freed prisoners, disabled weapons production, and rescued entire populations that had been enslaved for generations. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. They deployed their core battle fleets with orders to destroy any world that showed signs of rebellion. But they quickly discovered that their most advanced weapons were useless against an enemy that could alter reality itself. General Sujin commanded the Imperial response from her flagship, the Galactic Domination. It was the largest warship ever built, capable of destroying entire solar systems. Behind her, 50 other massive dreadnoughts prepared for the final assault on human space. All ships advance to attack formation, she ordered. We will eliminate the human homeworld and end this rebellion permanently. But as the Imperial fleet approached the Sol system, they encountered something that had never been seen before in galactic history. The entire solar system was surrounded by a reality distortion field so powerful that it extended beyond the orbit of Pluto. General, our ships are experiencing massive system failures, reported her tactical officer. All advanced technology is becoming unreliable. Impossible. Increase power to all systems and continue the advance. But increasing power only made the problems worse. Imperial fusion reactors began overloading as the altered physics made controlled fusion nearly impossible. Energy weapons exploded as their focusing systems failed. Even basic life support began failing as artificial gravity generators struggled to function. General, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. On the main screen, Commander Heijin appeared. He was standing on the bridge of a human dreadnought that looked primitive, but somehow managed to function perfectly in the altered physics zone. General Sujin, I presume, welcome to our solar system. As you can see, your technology doesn't work very well here. Surrender immediately, human, or we will destroy your entire species. Commander Heijin smiled sadly. General, you don't understand the situation. Your ships are helpless in our reality field. Your weapons can't target us, your shields can't protect you, and your engines can barely function. We could destroy your entire fleet in the next hour if we chose to. Then, why don't you? Because we're not like the Empire. We don't solve problems by destroying our enemies. We prefer to show them a better way. Around the Imperial fleet, human ships began emerging from hidden positions throughout the solar system. There were thousands of them, all functioning perfectly. In conditions that made Imperial technology useless, you have a choice, General, Commander Heijin continued. You can order your ships to power down and surrender, or you can watch helplessly as we disable them one by one. Either way, this fleet will not be leaving our solar system as a fighting force. General Sujin looked at her tactical displays, showing hundreds of Imperial ships struggling with system failures while thousands of human vessels moved to surround them. For the first time in her military career, she was facing an enemy that her technology couldn't defeat. How is this possible? She whispered. 200 years of preparation, Commander Heijin replied. While your empire was conquering worlds, with brute force we were learning how the universe actually works. And now we're going to use that knowledge to free every enslaved species in the galaxy. Emperor Vorthek paced through the ruins of his private chamber on Vorthek Prime. Shattered displays and broken furniture showed the extent of his rage as reports continued arriving from across the galaxy. Over half of his military forces had been disabled or destroyed by human technology that his scientists still couldn't understand. Your Majesty, General Ko Woon entered the chamber carefully, stepping around debris. The 12th and 15th battle fleets have gone silent. Intelligence believes they have been captured by human forces. The Emperor stopped pacing and turned to face his general. His ancient eyes glowed with artificial enhancement as his mechanical implants struggled to process the magnitude of his empire's defeat. Captured? Not destroyed? No, Your Majesty. The humans seem to prefer taking prisoners rather than killing. They're enemies. They're liberating imperial slave populations and offering our military personnel the choice between imprisonment and freedom. Freedom? The Emperor's voice was like grinding metal. What does that mean? General Ko Woon hesitated before answering. Many of our soldiers are choosing to join the human liberation forces rather than remain loyal to the Empire. The Emperor's rage exploded outward. With superhuman strength enhanced by cybernetic implants, he grabbed General Ko Woon by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Impossible. Imperial soldiers are loyal unto death. Your Majesty, Ko Woon gasped. The humans are showing them recordings of liberated worlds. Planets where former slaves are building their own governments. Species that have been free for the first time in centuries. Our soldiers are seeing what the galaxy could be like without the Empire. The Emperor threw Ko Woon across the room and activated his personal communication system. Dr. Chang Ho, report to my chambers immediately. Within minutes, the Empire's chief scientist arrived with his data tablets and holographic projectors. His 6 tentacles moved nervously as he prepared to deliver news he knew the Emperor wouldn't want to hear. Your Majesty, I have completed my analysis of human technology. The results are disturbing. Explain. Dr. Chang Ho activated a holographic display showing the fundamental forces that governed all matter and energy in the universe. Human technology operates by manipulating what we call physical constants. These are the basic numbers that determine how atoms interact, how energy behaves, and how space and time function. For 3,000 years, we have assumed these constants are unchangeable, but the humans can change them? Not only can they change them, they appear to have mastered this technology completely. They can create zones where Imperial fusion reactors become unstable, where energy weapons cannot focus, and where faster-than-light travel is impossible. The Emperor stared at the display for several minutes, his enhanced mind processing the implications. Can we develop countermeasures? Your Majesty, to develop such countermeasures, we would need to completely rebuild our understanding of physics. It would take centuries, perhaps millennia, and by then the humans will have perfected their technology even further. General Ko Woon struggled to his feet and approached cautiously. Your Majesty, there is another option. We still have the planet-killer weapons in the deep storage vaults. Weapons so powerful they have never been used in recorded history. The Emperor's expression brightened with malevolent hope. The reality bombs? Yes, Your Majesty. Weapons designed to tear holes in space itself. Even human technology might not be able to stop them. But Commander Inho was already aware of the Empire's most desperate plans. From his hidden monitoring station in the abandoned Rigel system, he watched Imperial forces moving their most dangerous weapons toward the front lines. Intelligence confirms the Empire is deploying reality bombs, he reported to Admiral Namsu. They're bringing them from storage facilities throughout Imperial space. Admiral Namsu studied the tactical reports with concern. Reality bombs were theoretical weapons that most civilizations considered too dangerous to build. They worked by creating tears in the fabric of space itself, destroying everything within vast areas, regardless of local physics. How many bombs do they have? Intelligence estimates between 50 and 100 devices. Each one is capable of destroying an entire solar system. And our countermeasures? Commander Inho activated a display showing humanity's own secret weapons. Deep beneath the surface of a dozen worlds, massive installations had been built over the past century specifically to deal with this threat. Dr. Hana believes our reality anchors can contain the damage from reality bombs, but she's never tested them against weapons this powerful. Dr. Hana worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the surface of Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Around her, the most advanced quantum manipulation equipment ever built hummed with barely contained energy. She had spent 20 years developing technology to counter the Empire's most dangerous weapons. The theory is sound, she explained to her research team. Reality bombs work by creating unstable tears in space-time. Our reality anchors work by stabilizing the local fabric of space. If we can activate enough anchors simultaneously, we should be able to contain the damage. Should? Asked her assistant Dr. Jung-ho. This is theoretical physics at its most extreme level. We're dealing with forces that could destroy entire sectors of the galaxy if we make a mistake. Meanwhile, the Empire was moving its most devastating weapons toward human space. The reality bombs were ancient devices, built during the Empire's early expansion when they faced civilizations with technology nearly equal to their own. They had been stored for thousands of years, waiting for an enemy that might require their use. General Ko Woon supervised the deployment from his command ship. Each reality bomb was the size of a small building and required specialized handling equipment to transport safely. Are you certain these weapons will work against human technology? He asked Dr. Chang Ho. Reality bombs don't rely on conventional physics. They tear holes in space itself, creating areas where no matter or energy can exist. Even human reality manipulation should be unable to counter them. But humanity had anticipated this possibility. For 50 years, their scientists had been studying the theoretical principles behind reality bombs, developing countermeasures for weapons they hoped would never be used. Activate all reality anchors throughout human space, Admiral Namsu ordered from his command center. If the Empire wants to tear holes in space, we'll make sure those holes get patched immediately. Throughout the solar system and beyond, massive installations that had been disguised as research facilities began revealing their true purpose. These reality anchors were designed to reinforce the fabric of space itself, making it resistant to the kind of damage that reality bombs could inflict. The Empire's first reality bomb was deployed at the edge of human space, targeting a small colony world that the Emperor believed would serve as an example to the rest of the galaxy. General Ko Woon watched from a safe distance as the weapon activated. The effect was immediate and terrifying. A sphere of absolute nothingness expanded outward from the bomb's location, erasing everything it touched from existence. Space itself ceased to exist within the sphere, creating a void that no form of matter or energy could survive. But as the sphere of destruction reached its maximum size, something unexpected happened. The expansion stopped. Around the edges of the void, space began healing itself as humanity's reality anchors worked to repair the damage. Impossible, Dr. Chang Ho whispered as he watched the readings. The humans are actually repairing space-time itself. Within hours, the void created by the reality bomb had shrunk to nothing. Space returned to normal, and the only sign of the weapon's use was the absence of a small moon that had been caught in the initial expansion. Commander In-Ho opened a communication channel to the Imperial fleet. General Ko Woon, this is Commander In-Ho of the Human Defense Force. We know you have approximately 99 more reality bombs. We also know that our technology can contain and repair the damage they cause. Are you really willing to destroy entire solar systems for a war you cannot win? General Ko Woon stared at his instruments in disbelief. The most powerful weapon in Imperial history had been neutralized by human technology that his scientists still couldn't understand. How? He transmitted back. We've been preparing for this war for 200 years, General. We studied every weapon the Empire has ever used, including the ones you thought were too dangerous to deploy. We're ready for anything you can throw at us. The Emperor received the news of the reality bomb's failure in his throne room, surrounded by the shattered remains of his empire's confidence. For the first time in 6 centuries of rule, he faced an enemy that his military could not defeat. Your Majesty, General Ko Woon reported via hologram, the reality bomb was completely neutralized. Human technology appears to be capable of repairing damage to space itself. The Emperor sat in silence for several minutes, his enhanced mind struggling to process the implications of total military defeat. What do you recommend, General? Your Majesty, I believe we must consider ... negotiation. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. In 3,000 years of imperial rule, the Empire had never negotiated with an enemy. They had only conquered or been conquered. But for the first time in galactic history, the Empire faced an enemy that couldn't be defeated by superi. The liberation of the Andorian sector began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral J1 stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberation, watching as his fleet approached the heavily fortified Imperial stronghold that had controlled 15 star systems for over 1,000 years. All ships report ready for Operation Freedom, announced Captain Yu-Jin from her position at the tactical station. Reality anchors are in position throughout the sector. Admiral J1 nodded. The Andorian sector was one of the Empire's most important military regions, containing major shipyards, training facilities, and administrative centers. It was also home to over 2 billion enslaved beings from dozens of different species. Begin Phase 1. Activate reality manipulation fields and disable all Imperial defensive systems. Throughout the sector, hidden human installations began altering the local laws of physics. Imperial space stations found their fusion reactors fluctuating wildly. Defensive platforms discovered their energy weapons couldn't maintain proper focus. Communication arrays filled with static as subspace frequencies became unreliable. Director Seok-jin monitored the operation from a massive command center hidden in the asteroid belt. His screen showed the status of liberation operations across hundreds of worlds simultaneously. Imperial defenses are down by 70% and falling, he reported. Civilian evacuation ships are standing by to assist with refugee operations. The human approach to war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of conquering worlds to add them to their own empire, humans liberated them and helped establish independent governments. Instead of enslaving defeated populations, they freed existing slaves and provided resources for rebuilding. On the Imperial Military Academy world of Corvani's Prime, Captain Yujin led a carefully planned assault that captured the facility without firing a single shot. As her troops secured the buildings, she addressed the thousands of young Imperial officers who had been training to conquer the galaxy. "Students of Corvani's Academy," she announced over the facility's communication system, "you have been taught that the Empire brings order to the galaxy through superior force. You have been told that conquest and slavery are necessary for galactic civilization." In the main auditorium, over 10,000 young aliens from across Imperial space listened in stunned silence. These were the future commanders of the Imperial military, beings who had never questioned the Empire's right to rule. "I am Captain Yujin of the Human Liberation Force. We are here to show you what the galaxy could be like without the Empire. What your own worlds could be like if they were free." She activated a holographic display showing recent footage from liberated worlds, former slave populations building their own cities, different species working together as equals, children playing in parks instead of working in Imperial factories. This is what we are fighting for. Not conquest, not revenge, but freedom for every intelligent being in the galaxy. The response from the young Imperial officers was immediate and overwhelming. Many of them came from species that had been conquered by the Empire generations ago. They had never seen their homeworlds as anything other than Imperial territory. Cadet Zorthak, a young insectoid from the Kepler system, raised one of his 4 arms. "Captain Yujin, is this real? Are these worlds truly free?" "They are free, Cadet, and if you choose, your homeworld can be free as well." Within hours, over half the Academy students had requested transport to liberated worlds to see the truth for themselves. The others chose to return to their home systems to spread word of what they had learned. The pattern repeated across the Andorian sector as human forces liberated world after world. But the most important operation was taking place on Andoris Prime itself, the sector capital where over 100 million slaves worked in massive industrial complexes. Admiral J1 led the assault personally, his flagship approaching the heavily defended world while reality manipulation fields disabled Imperial defenses. But instead of bombardment, his ships carried something far more dangerous to the Empire: hope. This is Admiral J1 of the Human Liberation Force, broadcasting to all beings on Andoris Prime. The Imperial forces that have enslaved you for generations are no longer in control of this world. You are free to choose your own destiny. In the slave quarters of Factory Complex Gamma 7, Dr. Centaur listened to the broadcast with tears streaming down his face. He had been a scientist on Alteria before the Empire conquered his world 50 years ago. Since then, he had worked 16 hours a day building weapons for his oppressors. "Is it possible?" whispered Keelathon, a young Altarian who had been born in slavery. "Could we really be free?" Dr. Centaur looked around at the thousands of slaves crowded into the factory dormitories. They represented dozens of species from across the galaxy, all united by their suffering under Imperial rule. "If the humans can defeat Imperial technology, then perhaps anything is possible." The liberation of Andoris Prime took 3 days. Human forces systematically disabled Imperial control systems while providing food, medical care, and transportation to former slaves. Director Seok Jin coordinated the massive humanitarian operation from orbit. Current count shows over 90 million former slaves requesting evacuation to liberated territories, he reported to Admiral J1. An additional 10 million wish to remain and establish an independent government on Andoris Prime. What about Imperial personnel? Most of the administrators and military officers have already evacuated. The few who remain are requesting amnesty in exchange for cooperation with the transition process. The liberation of the Andorian sector sent shockwaves throughout Imperial space. For the first time in 3,000 years, an entire region had broken free from Imperial control. But more importantly, the humans had proven that liberation was possible on a massive scale. News of the liberation spread quickly through secret communication networks that connected enslaved populations across the galaxy. On world after world, slave populations began organizing uprisings inspired by the human example on Vorthak Prime. Emperor Vorthak received reports of rebellions breaking out in dozens of sectors simultaneously. His empire, built on the foundation of absolute control through superior force, was collapsing as that force became meaningless against human technology. "Your Majesty," General Ko Woon reported via emergency transmission, "we have confirmed uprisings on over 300 worlds. Imperial forces are requesting permission to use maximum force to suppress the rebellions." "Granted," the Emperor snarled. "Destroy entire worlds if necessary." But when Imperial forces attempted to carry out these orders, they discovered that human technology had made their weapons useless. Reality manipulation fields protected rebel worlds. While human ships appeared to provide support and supplies to the uprisings, the liberation movement spread faster than the Empire could respond. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found themselves free to determine their own fate. Worlds that had served as Imperial resource extraction sites began developing their own economies. Dr. Hana coordinated the technical support for these operations from her hidden laboratory. Her team had developed portable reality anchors that could be quickly deployed to protect newly liberated worlds from Imperial retaliation. "We're receiving requests for liberation support from over 1,000 worlds," she reported to the Human Leadership Council. "The demand is exceeding our ability to respond." Admiral Namsu studied the galactic map showing the rapidly expanding liberation zones. Red areas marking Imperial control were being replaced by green zones representing free worlds at an accelerating pace. "We need to prioritize worlds with the largest slave populations and the most strategic importance," he decided. "Focus on breaking the Empire's ability to maintain control over their remaining territory." The strategy worked perfectly. Within weeks, entire sectors of Imperial space had declared independence. The Empire's military found itself fighting rebellions on hundreds of fronts while dealing with technology failures caused by human reality manipulation. On world after world, the same pattern repeated. Imperial forces would attempt to suppress rebellions only to discover that their weapons no longer worked properly. Human ships would appear to provide support and protection. Within days or weeks, another world would join the growing coalition of free systems. The psychological impact on Imperial forces was devastating. Soldiers who had been taught that Imperial technology was invincible watched their most advanced weapons fail against an enemy they had been told was primitive. Many began questioning everything they had been taught about Imperial superiority. Commander Inho intercepted communications from Imperial units across the galaxy. The messages revealed rapidly declining morale and increasing rates of desertion. "Imperial military effectiveness is down by over 60%, he reported. "Many units are refusing orders to attack civilian populations. Some are actively switching sides to join liberation forces." The Empire's 3,000-year reign of terror was ending not with a single decisive battle, but with the gradual realization that their system of control was no longer sustainable. World after world chose freedom over slavery, cooperation over conquest. Admiral J1 stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at a galaxy that was transforming before his eyes. The final Imperial fleet assembled at Vorthak Prime was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Over 5,000 warships from across the dying Empire converged on the capital world, preparing for one last desperate assault. On Earth itself, Marshal Hyun-woo watched the Imperial fleet from his hidden observation post in the outer system. His instruments counted dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and planet killers that represented 3,000 years of Imperial military engineering. It was a force capable of destroying entire civilizations. "Sir, the Imperial fleet is beginning to move toward human space," reported Lieutenant Chai Young from the sensor station. "Estimated arrival at Earth in 72 hours. Marshal Hyun-woo nodded calmly. He had been preparing for this moment for over 30 years. The Empire's final gambit would also be their final defeat. Signal all human forces. Begin operation. Final answer. Throughout the galaxy, the largest military operation in human history began. But unlike Imperial strategy, the human plan focused not on destruction, but on the complete elimination of the Empire's ability to wage war on Vorthak Prime. Emperor Vorthak stood in his throne room surrounded by the last loyal members of his government. His ancient body was kept alive by mechanical implants that had begun failing as his empire collapsed around him. "Your Majesty," General Ko Woon reported with barely contained desperation, "the final fleet is ready to depart. We have gathered every operational ship remaining in Imperial space." "And if this fails?" General Ko Woon hesitated before answering. "If this fails, Your Majesty, the Empire ends with us." The Emperor looked out through the transparent walls of his throne room at the massive fleet assembled in orbit. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds, now prepared for what everyone knew would be their final battle. "Then we will make the humans pay for their defiance, even if it costs us everything." But as the Imperial fleet departed for Earth, human forces were already implementing their own plan. Commander Chae-young led a small task force that had been positioned near Vorthak Prime for months, waiting for this exact moment. "Imperial fleet has cleared the system," she reported to Marshal Hyun-woo, beginning final phase operations. Her ships approached Vorthak Prime carefully, their reality manipulation fields disabled to avoid detection. The planet's defenses had been stripped to provide ships for the final fleet, leaving only minimal protection for the Imperial capital on the surface. Emperor Vorthak waited in his throne room as reports arrived from across the galaxy. Every remaining Imperial world was under attack simultaneously. Human forces weren't trying to conquer these worlds, they were liberating them. "Your Majesty," General Ko Woon's voice came through the communication system with growing panic. "Human forces have appeared at every major Imperial installation. They're not destroying our worlds, they're freeing our slaves and disabling our weapons." The Emperor's rage built to levels that threatened to overload his cybernetic implants. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled through fear and superior firepower. Now an enemy had appeared that made both meaningless. How many worlds have we lost? Over 90% of Imperial territory is now under human control or has declared independence. We control fewer than 50 worlds, and that number is falling rapidly. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet approached Earth with grim determination. Fleet Admiral Taeho commanded the assault from his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance. Around him, the largest military force in Imperial history prepared for what they all knew would be their final battle. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "We will break through human defenses and destroy their homeworld. The Empire will be avenged." But as the Imperial fleet entered the Sol system, they discovered that humanity had been preparing for this moment. The entire solar system was surrounded by a reality manipulation field so powerful that it extended far beyond the orbit of Pluto. "Sir, all ships are reporting massive system failures," announced the tactical officer. "Our technology is becoming completely unreliable." Admiral Taeho watched his instruments fluctuate wildly as Imperial technology struggled to function in the altered physics environment. Around him, 5,000 of the most advanced warships ever built began failing in ways their crews had never experienced. "Continue the advance," he ordered desperately. "We will fight with whatever systems still function." But the human response was overwhelming. From hidden positions throughout the solar system, thousands of human ships emerged. They moved with perfect coordination, their simple but effective technology working flawlessly in conditions that crippled Imperial vessels. Commander Hae-jin appeared on the main screen of Admiral Taeho's flagship. The scarred human commander looked tired but determined as he delivered humanity's final message to the Empire. "Admiral Taeho, I am sorry it has come to this. We offered the Empire a choice and they chose destruction over peace. Surrender? Human, and we might spare your world." Commander Hae-jin shook his head sadly. "Admiral, you still don't understand. Your fleet is helpless. Your weapons can't target us, your shields can't protect you, and your engines barely function. We could destroy every ship in your fleet within the hour. Then why don't you? Because destroying you would make us no better than the Empire. Instead, we're going to show you what total annihilation really means." Around the helpless Imperial fleet, human ships began a carefully coordinated operation. But instead of destroying the Imperial vessels, they systematically disabled every weapon system, engine, and communication array. What we promised was the total annihilation of your military capabilities, Commander Heijin explained as the operation continued. Not the destruction of your people, but the complete elimination of your ability to wage war. Within hours, 5,000 Imperial warships had been converted from instruments of conquest into helpless hulks drifting in space. Their crews were taken prisoner, but they were treated with the same care that humans showed to all their captives. Dr. Biko, humanity's chief scientist, appeared alongside Commander Heijin to explain what had happened. For 200 years, we studied every aspect of Imperial technology. We learned how to neutralize your weapons, disable your ships, and make your most advanced systems useless. But we also learned something more important. The transmission now included images from across the galaxy showing liberated worlds, where former slaves were building new civilizations. We learned that the Empire's greatest weakness wasn't their technology. It was their belief that conquest and slavery were necessary for galactic civilization. They were wrong. On Vorthak Prime, Emperor Vorthak watched the final defeat of his military forces with growing despair. His empire was gone, his fleets were captured, and his control over the galaxy had been eliminated in a matter of months. Commander Chai Young's voice came through his communication system with an offer he had never expected to receive. Emperor Vorthak, this is Commander Chai Young of the Human Liberation Force. Your empire is finished, but your life doesn't have to be. We offer you the same choice we have given to every Imperial citizen. Join us in building a free galaxy, or retire peacefully to a world of your choosing. The Emperor stared at the communication screen in disbelief. You would spare me after everything the Empire has done? We believe in justice, not revenge. The Empire's crimes were terrible, but killing you won't bring back the beings who died. What matters now is preventing such tragedies from happening again. For the first time in 6 centuries, Emperor Vorthak was forced to consider a future he hadn't planned. His empire was gone, but humanity was offering him something no conquered enemy had ever received from the Empire: mercy. 6 months later, Dr. Biko stood before the First Galactic Assembly on the liberated world of New Harmony. Representatives from over 1,000 formerly enslaved species had gathered to write the Constitution for a new galactic civilization based on freedom and cooperation. The Empire claimed they brought order to the galaxy through superior force, he addressed the assembly. But true order comes from justice, cooperation, and respect for the rights of all intelligent beings. The former Emperor Vorthak sat in the audience, no longer a ruler, but simply an elderly being learning to live in a free society. Beside him sat former Imperial soldiers, who had chosen to help build the new galactic civilization rather than cling to the old ways. Captain Moon Young delivered humanity's final report to the assembly, explaining how the war had been won without becoming conquerors themselves. Humanity's greatest achievement wasn't developing superior technology, she explained. It was proving that freedom and cooperation are stronger than tyranny and oppression. The threat of total annihilation remains not as conquest, but as protection for all free peoples. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest victory wasn't defeating your enemies, but showing them a better way to live. The Empire's 3,000-year reign of terror was over, replaced by a new age where every being had the right to determine their own destiny, and in the depths of space, human monitoring stations remained vigilant, ready to defend the freedom that had been bought with patience, preparation, and the courage to fight for something better than conquest. The galaxy was finally free, and humanity had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with beings who refused